All right, this is We the People News. Hey, this is common news, learning, opinion type of deal, all right? Uh, this video is without prejudice and or without recourse. Not attorney, not giving legal advice. Do not take it as such. All right? Never look straight forward. Always look around you to be able to protect yourself by any means necessary. Let's proceed forward, people.
So this question of states' rights and federal power culminated in the biggest objection to the Constitution, and that was the lack of a Bill of Rights. And this is a fascinating story. And why don't you tell it through the lens of Mr. Morris, who was initially for the Constitution but came to object to it because it lacked a Bill of Rights. How did that story play out?
Okay. Most states had constitutions which had Bill of Rights in them. So when they came around to the debate of whether we need a Bill of Rights in the federal Constitution, there was very little debate about it, relatively speaking, on the 4 months. Toward the end, it was discussed, but the people like James Madison, who said, we don't really need it because each of the states have their own constitution and the rights are in there. Why do we need to replicate that? And actually there was a fear that if the federal government said we have certain rights, how would you know what all the rights are? And if you didn't list a specific right, then somebody would say you didn't have it. They thought it was just easier to say the rights are really embodied in the state constitutions and we're not taking that. At the end of the Constitutional Convention, 3 people decided not to vote for the Constitution. They'd been there the entire time, and they decided not to vote for it and not to sign it. Of the 55 that were there, 39 signed, but 3 did not sign largely because of the Bill of Rights. The most famous of which is George Mason. George Mason was a leader in Virginia, a very good friend of George Washington's, said without a Bill of Rights, we can't really have a real Constitution. Of course, he had drafted the Bill of Rights for the Virginia Constitution, and therefore he thought that the Bill of Rights was very important. The others were Randolph, also from Virginia, and Elbridge Gerry from Massachusetts. They were the 3 who decided, because of no Bill of Rights, among other issues, they weren't going to sign onto it. So Madison very much argued that there should be no Bill of Rights. It wasn't necessary because the state constitutions had it. But in the ratification process, it wasn't going all that easily. In other words, once the Constitution was agreed to and it was signed by the members and they went home, they had to have it ratified. And how were you going to ratify this? What was the procedures? Do you ratify it by going back to the Articles of Confederation Congress? Well, that probably wouldn't work because you're getting rid of them, so they probably wouldn't vote for it. Do you go to the state legislatures? Well, there was a fear that the state legislatures might not like this because a lot of their power was being taken away. So the system was you were going to have state legislatures call state conventions, and they would approve or not approve the Constitution that was agreed to in Philadelphia. And that was the system they went forward with. And so each state was supposed to go ahead with its own state convention. Many of these that debated it wanted to have amendments to the Constitution, but it was an up or down vote. You either voted for it or you didn't because there weren't going to be any amendments allowed. But it was recognized that a lot of people wanted to have in states a Bill of Rights. And so Madison more or less agreed as enabled to, when he wanted to get it approved by Virginia, it was very close in Virginia, that he in effect said that there would be a Bill of Rights not long after the Constitution was ratified. And so it was kind of understood by certain states that wanted a Bill of Rights that once it was ratified, the first Congress would come up with a Bill of Rights. And Madison turned out to be in the House of Representatives, and he largely drafted the Bill of Rights in that first Congress.
So this is fascinating. You've just told us that according to the procedure of the Articles of Confederation, the ratification procedure for the Constitution was illegal.
Yes.
So why should we respect the Constitution as valid law today?
Well, power is what it is, and people basically were willing to accept it because they recognized that there was no better system. So yes, if you had a constitutional court the kind we have today, somebody probably would have gone in and sued and said this is illegal because you can't get rid of the Articles of Confederation this way because the Articles of Confederation said you can only amend the Articles of Confederation by certain ways that they weren't really honoring.
And the argument on the other side would be, if we, the people of the United States, are sovereign, then we can express our will as we please, regardless of the previous generation's procedures.
That's correct. So,
Yeah, listen to that part. Rewind it.
ultimately what happened in the ratification was this, to finish this part, there were 13 states, 9 of the 13 was decided it was all that was necessary. So if 9 of the 13 ratified it, it would go into effect, and the other 4, if they didn't ratify, they just wouldn't be part of the system. So they be independent or something of that wasn't clear. So the debate went forward. Some states went quickly. All of you probably have seen license plates from Delaware. Anybody ever seen that? It says first in the country. Well, they quickly ratified it unanimously. And a couple other states were unanimously in favor of it. But it wasn't clear that it was going to be approved so clearly in some of the states. Massachusetts, it was very complicated. Virginia was very complicated. New York was very complicated. And in New York, in part because of the concerns about it, some of the people who were interested in getting it approved, John Jay, who was from New York, Madison, and Hamilton, began writing anonymous essays arguing for the approval of it. That later became known as the Federalist Papers, and it was, had some impact on New York. I don't think it had as much impact outside, but that's something you can debate. In any event, New Hampshire became the ninth state. Virginia then had a debate, not knowing that New Hampshire had approved it. Virginia had a debate where they thought they were the ninth state and they were the key state, they were the largest state, and if they didn't approve it, it would probably kill everything. Not knowing that New Hampshire had been the ninth state because things weren't communicated that quickly, Virginia did have a long debate. It narrowly approved the Constitution, and in effect, it went into effect then.
Anyway, there you guys go. I don't know. Y'all decide. Do the Diesel for We the People News. Bye, y'all.